What's up, Earth Rockers? It's your boy Shovatar. I'm back again. It's not gonna have been... based on the schedule that I'm releasing videos, it won't be that long between this video and the last video that I've commentated, but in real life it's actually been a while since I commentated the video. Right off the bat, I want to kind of explain what's going on in this footage. This is Alucard only for Julius mode and Dawn of Sorrow. The reason that I'm starting off at level 10 is because in order to get Alucard, you have to go a fair way into the castle on Julius, and simply the process of doing that naturally meant that I gained a couple of levels. That's also going to be the reason why I'm not fighting Dario in this run, is because you have to fight Dario to get to the part of the castle that Alucard is in. Aside from that, though, Alucard is the only character of the three who actually can beat the whole game by himself, because he has the movement abilities that the other characters lack. If you watch my Yoko only run and my Julius only run, there are a couple of places where I absolutely have to swap to Alucard just to get to a certain part of the castle. And there's not going to be any of that here. It's pure Alucard all the time. If you're familiar with Symphony of the Night, you might notice that Alucard here looks exactly the same as he did in Symphony of the Night, and he plays very similarly too. He kind of plays like Symphony of the Night Alucard, kind of pared down to the absolute basics. There's no Tetra Spirit, there's no magic, there's no sub-weapons. He has a sword, he can turn into a bat, and he can shoot fireballs. Something that I mentioned in my other two commentaries about Julius mode was the general comparison between Julius mode and Dracula's Curse. And Alucard here is more different from Dracula's Curse Alucard than either the other two characters, Yoko and Julius, are to their respective analogs, Sypha and Trevor. Because Alucard in Dracula's Curse, I already mentioned this in other videos, I'll make this as brief as I can. Alucard in Dracula's Curse is essentially a utility character. He exists mostly to help you navigate the levels easily. In Dawn of Sorrow, by contrast, navigation is not really an issue. He's a combat character, just the same as Julius or Yoko. I would say combat-wise, he's not... it's tough to say whether he's better or worse than Yoko. He has fewer tools than Yoko has. Yoko has 3 different spells she can use, and she has her mace. I would say that Alucard is probably the weakest combat-wise of the 3, but only because he is facing some pretty stiff competition. In terms of his general combat in the game, he's perfectly fine. I have no complaints whatsoever about Alucard's power level in Julius mode. The choice to give him Hellfire as his single non-melee combat ability was an interesting one. It certainly fits thematically, because in Dracula's Curse the only spell that Alucard had was well, this wasn't a spell, this is his default attack. He would shoot 3 fireballs like Dracula does. So I think it makes sense thematically to give him this, but also just the way that Hellfire works in Dawn of Sorrow is kind of interesting. In terms of how it contrasts with his regular attack, because to compare Alucard to Julius, Julius has the whip. The whip is very long range. The whip, it's the classic Belmont whip. It's long range, but it has a little bit of a wind up. Alucard, by contrast, has a short range, fast swinging sword, and Hellfire is very slow and has a very long range, but also does a lot of damage. It's kind of the thing about it that makes it balanced. Sorry if I sound a little bit congested. The fact is that I am a little bit congested. That's just how it is. In terms of Alucard's ability to fight the bosses, I don't think... see, Alucard has access to a super jump that the other characters don't have access to, but I never really found many places where that was super useful. It's useful in a couple of niche combat situations to just be able to get more ground, but the real thing about Alucard that makes him useful is the teleport slash, which he just did right there. That is so important. I cannot overstate how important the teleport slash is. Because that's like the third thing that he does, aside from Hellfire and from just swinging his sword, is the teleport slash. And the teleport slash makes him invincible for a brief period of time and causes him to do extra damage to something in front of him. It does have kind of a steep MP cost, but in terms of what it gets you in return, I'd say that the cost is more than worth it. In direct contrast to Yoko's lightning spell, which is good, but also kind of costs too much. The teleport slash, I think, has an appropriate cost given its usability, its usefulness. And that right there is a great example of what I mean when I say that Hellfire is also useful, which is what I mean, it would have to be if you were going to give him this ability that has this really long wind-up. I'm talking about Hellfire now. If you were going to give him an ability with a long wind-up like that, you would have to make it really good. And the interesting thing about Hellfire is that it's actually not as clunky and restrictive as it looks, because you can backdash out of the Hellfire animation at any time, and if you time it really well, you can backdash out of it, like, right at the exact frame that you shoot the fireballs. So backdashing out of the spell won't negate the fireballs being cast if you do it at the right time. And if you watch my boss rush footage for Alucard, you will see that in action. Another thing that I really want to mention, in terms of Dawn of Sorrow Alucard, and this is a very specific thing, but it was very important to me, is that, like I said, he looks like Symphony of the Night, he plays like Symphony of the Night, but one thing that Symphony of the Night did that always bothered me is that when Alucard jumps, and if he's falling in the air and he swings, he'll do like a downward slash. And the downward slash in Symphony of the Night was super, super important because there's a thing you can do where if you are falling in the air and you do a downward slash, and then you hit the floor, landing on the floor automatically resets your, like, attack cooldown, so you can do a falling slash. So while falling, you can do a downward slash, and then as soon as you hit the floor, you can do another slash again. So it's like this really, really fast, like, 2-slash thing you can do a lot in Symphony of the Night. And it's really useful, but the thing about it that always bothered me is that you don't have control over whether Alucard downward slashes directly. He'll only downward slash if he's falling. Like, pressing down while mid-air and then attacking won't make him downward slash. He has to be falling. But in Dawn of Sorrow, they actually changed that so that if you press down and attack while in midair, whether you're rising or falling, he will do the downward slash, which was a really, really welcome change to the way that he plays. Like I said, very specific, but also, like, actually really, really important in terms of the overall flow of the game. That right there is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. When I did like a downward slash and then a crouching slash right there when I was killing that skeleton ape. That's kind of exactly what I'm talking about. One consequence of the fact that I'm starting off this run over leveled, like I'm starting at level 10 instead of level 1, is that a lot of these early enemies are not going to do that much damage to me. But normal enemies aren't really much of a threat anyway in Dawn of Sorrow, with a couple of exceptions. Like with the Yoko and Julius videos, I'm also going to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the boss rush on Alucard. And the boss rush on Alucard is probably, I would say, the second hardest compared to, the second hardest before Yoko. Generally speaking, in terms of difficulty, I'd say Soma is the easiest, then Julius, then Alucard, then Yoko. What makes the boss rush so hard for Alucard is just the fact that he has such a limited tools. Julius has 4 sub-weapons, Yoko has 3 spells, but Alucard only really has his sword, he has a teleport slash, and he has Hellfire. But the reason why I think the boss rush is still easier on Alucard than is on Yoko, even though Alucard has fewer tools, is that he has better tools. Yoko's lightning spell is almost useless, and none of her abilities are defensive in nature. And what I mean by defensive is that, you know, Julius has Grand Cross, which gives him temporary invulnerability while he uses it, and then Alucard has the teleport slash, which just gets him out of the way of the enemy and also gives him temporary invincibility while he does it, which it would have to, otherwise it would never be used, because when he teleport slashes, it's not like he teleports forward and then can get hit by whatever he teleports into. If that was the case, then it would never be used, because it would just be so easy to teleport into things. Instead, it's like right there. See, he's like inside the knight and not taking damage. That's because the teleport image doesn't take damage. If it did, it would limit the usefulness of the teleport slash way too much. So the fact that Alucard has this defensive ability in the teleport slash makes Abaddon way, way easier in the boss rush. Yoko doesn't really have anything to avoid Abaddon's attack. She's more designed around, if she takes damage on Abaddon, she can heal up. And I'll talk more about Abaddon when we get to him. But I just want to talk generally about why the boss rush is easier on Alucard than it is on Yoko. Other reason is because of the death fight. phase 2 of the Grim Reaper fight, Alucard can teleport out of the way of of the Grim Reaper's most dangerous attack, and again, I'll be talking about that when we get to it. So the Dimitri fight is really interesting on Alucard because the fact that Alucard has only one non-melee attacking option means that you don't really have a choice but to give Dimitri Hellfire, and the reason why, because either Dimitri gets whatever you give him, or he uses the Malachi Soul. And the problem with the Malachi Soul is that it just moves too slowly. Because ideally what you want to do when you fight Dimitri is bait him into using his special attack and then avoid whatever that attack is and hit him before he does anything else, which is exactly what's happening right here. The problem with the Malachi Soul is that it takes too long to get ahead of him, to get far enough ahead of him that you can jump over it and then hit him. Hellfire is dangerous because, number one, he can't hit you with all 3 fireballs and it'll do 1,000,000 damage, and number two, when it fans out in front of him, it can get really high, so you have a limited window to actually jump over the fireballs. But the plus side is that you can, if you jump over them, the sooner you jump over them, the better, because the sooner you jump over them, the less high you have to jump. So giving Dimitri Hellfire is encouraging you to jump over it immediately and just keep up the attack on him. And it's only really bad if you accidentally get clipped by it, but that should basically never happen once you get the timing down. And that's always what's tricky with Dimitri, is just figuring out the timing for when he sticks his hand out compared to when the ability actually comes out. Not really much to say about that Malphus fight. Karasuman, Malphus, whatever you want to call that thing. I would say that when he's on the floor and I was pounding fireballs into him, that's a good demonstration of the other way that Hellfire is useful. It's just such high damage. It's higher DPS than the Sword Swing if you can hit enemies with all 3 fireballs at once, which is basically what you should try to do, because I think Alucard really struggles to utilize all of his MP. Something that I talk about not just in Dawn of Sorrow but in Castlevania games in general is optimal utilization of your resources. If the game gives you something you can use, you should use it to its fullest extent. And with MP in Dawn of Sorrow and in Aria of Sorrow, like, every second of the game that you spend with full MP is technically MP that you're wasting, because MP constantly regenerates. So you should be constantly looking for ways to utilize your MP to make sure that you're taking advantage of the resource that the game is literally constantly giving you. And Hellfire just kind of helps Alucard do that, because it's very easy to forget that you have it and just kind of go through the game slashing things like Symphony of the Night, but if you want to play optimally, you would try to use Hellfire. You would try to use every tool that the game gives you. Here, I'm kind of surprised that I'm going to the caverns first. I usually don't do this. I think I know why. I think it's because of Gurgoth. But I actually don't remember doing this, so this is interesting. No, now I remember. Sorry. No, I'm pretty sure I do this with every Julius mode run, because after the clock tower you can go right to the pinnacle. Right, I'm remembering this now. Sorry, like I said, it's been a while. Because the way that it usually goes in like a normal Soma mode, like a run where you play as Soma, is you have to go down to the caverns to get the bat form, and then you can go up to the pinnacle through the clock tower. But obviously in Julius mode, you have Alucard at that point, so you can just go right from the clock tower to the pinnacle. So I think I'm just getting the caverns out of the way first. Then I can go right to the Condemned Tower, and then to the Clock Tower, and then to the Pinnacle. Right. Now I'm remembering. Sorry, I was a little bit too clever for my own good there. That's a perfect example of, like, yeah. Beautiful. If they give you time to use Hellfire, you should do it. The boss rush on Alucard was, like, the most vicious challenge I've put before myself in a long time, because like with Julius, I was trying to no damage it, and that turned out to be really fucking hard. Even with Alucard's teleport slash, because there's just only so many things that you can do with it. Damn, look at how much damage I just took. I lost, like, was that like a fifth of my health? I feel like nothing even happened and I've like lost a fifth of my health. This boss fucking sucks. This is the worst boss in the game, probably. I know I've talked a lot of shit about Paranoia, but I think this guy might be worse, because Paranoia at least has an interesting concept behind it, and it's really just about learning it, but with this guy, it's like... Trying to hit this guy is just so annoying. It's like pulling fucking teeth. Especially with Alucard, because Alucard's two options are either get really close to him and try to hit him, or try to hit him with like this wind-up fireball attack that he's too high up to fucking get hit by optimally. Optimally, in this context of me getting hit by all three fireballs, but he's just too high up in the fucking water to do that. So obnoxious, dude. The way that I eventually figured out how to fight this guy when it came time to do the boss rush was I just sit in a corner the whole time, then I like bait him down. Just wait for him to show up and then hit him when he comes down. This is like a common I don't want to say mistake exactly, but kind of like a paradox of how I play through these games, where I'll play through the main game first, then the boss rush, and then, but it's like, when it comes time for me to actually learn the bosses, I generally learn them way better when I attempt the boss rush, and the consequence of that is that by the time I've learned the bosses, I'm like already done with the game. So it's unfortunate, but I think that's still the way that makes the most sense to do it. Because you can't, like, jumping right into the boss rush wouldn't really make sense. You would want to make sure that you've actually learned the character and that you have some idea of what you're doing before you go into the fucking meat grinder, which is what I would describe the Dawn of Sorrow boss rush as. I would describe it as a fucking meat grinder. No damaging, obviously. If all you want to do with the boss rush is Dawn of Sorrow is just see the end of it, then it's not that hard to do. I don't know if I've already explained this, but I'm gonna do it again now, just in case I haven't while we're in this extremely boring part of the game. The reason that I go for no damage on the boss rush instead of going for some kind of like time cutoff is because, for one thing, you know, this is a YouTube thing. It's just easier to convey that something about what I'm doing is remarkable or noteworthy in a thumbnail if I say boss rush no damage as opposed to boss rush in, you know, 5 minutes, because a layperson might not know what would constitute like a particularly fast boss rush. The second thing is that I generally prefer goals that are more concrete like that. That it's like, where it's just like, just do it while fulfilling this one concrete objective, and whatever you do to accomplish that is fair game. Trying to beat the boss rush as fast as possible would actually be a lot more stringent in terms of the gameplay you would have to do, and it would also probably require like doing some very specific strats. In the context of Soma, it would involve like probably farming a bunch of souls that I don't have. I would just rather, like if you want to beat the boss rush as fast as possible, there's probably a specific set of tools that you need to have, or a particular strategy that you need to execute. But if all you're trying to do is beat the boss rush without taking any damage, then any strategy that achieves that is acceptable. This is why speedrunning is so hard, because speedrunning doesn't have a set goal. It's just do it faster than everyone else, whatever that is. And that really weeds out whatever is not perfectly optimal. Like, speedrunning is all about optimization. That's why it's so fucking hard if it's like a high level of competition. It's not to say that what I'm doing with these games isn't hard. You know, like no death, no damage. It requires, but compared to the level of familiarity and the level of execution that's required to get like a really good speed run, it's not really comparable. Because the thing about no damage, no death type challenges is that it gives you the luxury to play the game at your pace, and oftentimes the best way to make a game really hard is just to give yourself a time limit. That's the case in a lot of games. If you can take your time doing whatever you want, like especially in RPG style games, then like if I really wanted to be absolutely mega degenerate, when doing a no death run of like any of the Metroid style Castlevania games, I could just fucking farm levels if I really wanted to. That never really became necessary. At least not in the games that I've played so far. I actually have started on Portrait of Ruin. Portrait of Ruin's hard mode does have a level cap to it. 3 level caps actually, 50, 25, and 1. I'm not going to talk too much about Portrait of Ruin because I have a lot of footage, so I'm going to get to save up all the things that I have to say about Portrait of Ruin until I actually get to it. But I think the level cap in Portrait of Ruin is an excellent idea, because Portrait of Ruin hard mode is kind of like sticking your dick in a blender. And I think it was intelligent of them to anticipate that the player might be tempted to cheese the challenge by just like numerical manipulation. I guess I will say a little bit. I guess I'll talk about this a little bit. Although to clarify, I wasn't going to play max level 1. I'm not going to play max level 1 Portrait of Ruin hard mode because I think that's a bit much. I have my reasons for doing that, but again, I don't want to go off on a tangent about Portrait of Ruin while I'm trying to talk about Dawn of Sorrow. I'm just talking about kind of like level grinding in general. And this is something that I've always talked about before in terms of when I talked about Symphony of the Night and I talked about how easy it was. I said at the time that on the one hand that's like one of the most common complaints people make about Symphony of the Night is the fact that it's too easy. But on the other hand, in a game that has RPG elements, in a game that has like player power scaling, maybe scaling's not the right word. When player power can be altered through like farming or grinding, you do want to be careful not to make the game like too hard, or else because you don't want to encourage that kind of thing. With Dawn of Sorrow, they don't. The thing about Dawn of Sorrow is that they don't lock. The game's not so hard. Like, the reason that I farm so much in Dawn of Sorrow is not necessarily because the game's too hard, but just because, like, it's just more fun to play the game with a weapon that's good. And so if you're gonna, like, lock weapons behind farming, I'm just gonna fucking do it. You know what I mean? Because my thing about hard modes and about difficulty in video games is that I don't mind it when you take a bunch of damage. I do mind it when you don't do that much damage. That's like the sticking point for me. That's why I don't mind Chronicles or Dracula's Curse or any of the really tough classic style Castlevania games, because the difficulty comes from the fact that you're so fragile. But to compensate, everything dies super fast, so that really keeps the pacing up. Nothing kills pacing in a video game like having to hit the same enemy like 9 or 10 or 12 times before it dies. And that's sort of a question of fun rather than difficulty. I don't really know. When people talk about artificial difficulty, I don't really know what they mean. But my contention with damage sponge enemies is not necessarily that hitting an enemy, like having to spend longer fighting an enemy, isn't harder. It is obviously harder, it's just not as fun as when you die quickly, but then also the enemy dies quickly. And Dawn of Sorrow does a good job of in terms of the bosses at least, kind of accomplishing both of those things. Where the Dawn of Sorrow regular enemies are not threatening, and that's the case on Julius mode as in Soma mode, but I think this is a break? Yeah. There's a bathroom break, I think. I am listening to the game sound, but I couldn't quite hear if the music cut or not. I don't know if that was a pause or if that was like a break that I got up to go do something else. This time I remembered to cut that out, so good for me. So we're coming up on the Bat Company boss, which is a boss that I fucking hate. And I think this is another case where the way that I fight it here is going to be pretty bad, but I cleaned it up a lot in my boss rush footage. The purpose of these videos, I think, is more so just to show you what most of the game is like, and to give me a chance to talk a little bit about the individual characters in Julius mode. If you want to see like optimal execution of a lot of the encounters, then watch the boss rush footage, because that's where the good shit is going to be. See, that is exactly the kind of mistake that I learned not to make, is to The way that you want to do it optimally is you want to bait the charge, such that you want to hit it with Hellfire as soon as he comes up, then reestablish distance, and reestablish distance, wait to bait the charge, then hit him again. I think I maybe almost do it here. Yes, this is exactly what I should be doing. Right, that rhythm of Hellfire, then bait the charge and reestablish distance, then Hellfire, then reestablish distance, that kind of thing. The problem with the reason why this is all fucked up is because he's not on the floor. It's so much easier if I can bait him into charging me along the floor, but once he's in midair, that fucks up the whole thing, because the rhythm that I was just talking about of avoiding the charge in the Bat Company fight is generally like jumping over him when he charges. But if he's charging from the air, I can't like jump over him effectively. But that fight is all about like timing and figuring out like what to do, and just memorizing the pacing of it pretty much. And actually, that's a fight where Alucard has a tool to avoid really unfortunate situations that Yoko and Julius do not, because he has a super jump. And he can dive kick in midair, which I think Julius also can, but Yoko can't. For some reason. This level is kind of like, I don't know. Like, if I walk into a secret area of the game called the Silenced Ruins, I expect it to be, like, fucking scary. But it's just full of zombies and has, like, one obnoxious boss. I don't know. Kind of underwhelming. The Condemned Tower is fucking scary. You call it a Condemned Tower, it should be fucking scary. Where am I going? Oh, I'm going to the Condemned Tower, right? I always forget this. See, I would get confused about... Because there is another pathway to the Condemned Tower through that big room back there, but it only opens up... You have to open it up from the other side, so I have to go back up to the Dimitri Malthus boss room area, and then go to the Condemned Tower. And actually, if I really wanted to min-max, I could have gone to the caverns first, probably. Then cleared out the caverns, then gone to the Dimitri Malthus area, then gone to the Condemned Tower, Clock Tower, Pinnacle. I think the reason that I didn't do that is because I would probably wanted to be higher level for the Bat Company fight, because as you saw just now, I didn't really have the fight down well at this point in time. And I was expecting to take some damage. I have since remedied this and lessened my ignorance, but at the time that was a concern. I fucking hate these things. There, perfect. Shit. I keep on bumping my microphone. Ugh. I really need to find a better physical setup for these commentaries, because like the way that it is now is pretty awkward. I think I may have mentioned this already in another video, but like my microphone is attached to like a windowsill, which is not great. Maybe I should hold the microphone in my hand like a performer. But then the sound levels would be even more fucking inconsistent than they already are, so that's probably not a good idea. Speaking of sound levels, I wish somebody let me know if you notice this or if you think I'm just crazy, but I swear to God, the footage that I've uploaded from Dawn of Sorrow, like the sound is slightly desynced. I noticed that when I was watching back the commentary video that I did for Dawn of Sorrow. In general, the one where I talked for 2 hours, that I feel like by the end of that video, in like the last half-hour stretch, the sound is like really badly delayed, and I don't know why. Like, the way that I put these videos together is I will just extract the sound from the video file and then edit my commentary into it, and then adjust the sound levels so that I'm audible and the game is audible, and then I just edit that new sound file back over the footage again. And nothing in that process should cause a desync, but it seemed like it was really desynced. I hope to God it's not like an issue with the emulator somehow, or no, why would it be an issue with the emulator? It would have to be an issue with OBS. So I don't know what that's all about, but it's very annoying because I can't find out why it's happening. I would get slight audio desyncs when I uploaded NES commentary footage. No, not audio desyncs. I would like my narration, my commentary would be like desynced with the footage, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm just talking about like Soma swings the claim Solus and it makes like the little sound that it makes like after the weapon hits, and I don't know why. I think I mean if I can't find a reason for it, if I open up the soundtrack in Audacity and everything is synced up the way it's supposed to be, then I guess there's nothing I can do about it, but that's very frustrating. Because it is important to me that... I mean, I don't know how many people, when they watch these long commentaries, are literally sitting and watching the whole thing. I kind of suspect that most people... This is the kind of thing that like maybe you would listen to in the background, which I don't have a problem with, by the way, if you do that, because that's something that I do a lot, where I'll just like put something on in the background and listen to it while I'm doing something else. So audio desync isn't a huge issue if that's the means by which people are watching it, but if I still... Oh, the fucking Gurgoth fight is happening. I need to talk about Gurgoth. Okay, Gurgoth on Alucard is actually a fucking nightmare. And it's a nightmare because the centerpiece of the Gurgoth fight is his jump, which I think he's going to do in a second here. No, he's not doing it. The centerpiece of the Gurgoth fight is his jump. That's like the thing that he does that you need to have a really concrete plan for and you need to be able to react to. And for some fucking reason, they didn't give Alucard a slide kick. Soma has a slide kick, Yoko has a slide kick, Julius has a slide kick. Yeah, there I walked forward because I thought he was going to do the jump. But for some fucking reason, Alucard doesn't. And that's a huge problem because the way that you're supposed to deal with Gurgoth's jump is you're supposed to slide kick under him when he does it. That's like how you avoid that attack, and Alucard just can't fucking do it. So you have two choices. There's a really, really brief window where Alucard can actually run right under the jump, but the timing is like super, super, super fucking precise. Otherwise, for phase 2, Alucard can just do this, actually, for the Gurgoth fight. He can just super jump over him when he does the jump. That only works on phase 2, though, because in phase 2 there's no ceiling. In phase 1, if he tries to jump, you either have to go for the super specific run underneath him timing, or you have to like run underneath him and then backdash the last way out from under him. And the timing there is also super specific, but it's not as specific as it is for if you're just trying to run under him. Fuck. I was hoping to dive kick down onto the orb like the second it spawned, but I was a little bit too early. And there I kind of just got lucky because he never did the jump in phase 1. So that's just kind of the Gurgoth, the reality of Gurgoth. That's kind of the reality with a lot of bosses in I almost said Symphony of the Night because I see Alucard on the screen. A lot of bosses in Dawn of Sorrow where it's like, if you don't know them perfectly, then you're kind of just fishing for a good pattern when you get to them. That's why it's so important to learn them comprehensively, because that negates the feeling of randomness. I don't remember what happened in my boss rush footage. I do remember that when I initially was trying to no damage the boss rush on Alucard, Gurgoth was like the biggest fucking run killer at the beginning until I figured out the backdash underneath him thing. Because before that I was trying to go for like the super, super tight like run underneath him timing. And I would just fuck that up. Like, I would only really get that like 60% of the time. So it was like every time I got to Gurgoth, it was like there was a 40% chance that he would just kill me. And I would just have to stop right there. Like, when I eventually did tabulate, so what I did for my Julius boss rush attempts is I actually kept track of how many times I died to each boss, and dying in this context meaning taking damage. And I did the same thing with Alucard. With Alucard, the first, I think, 40 or 35 attempts, I lost the footage for, so I don't remember what killed me. But I'm absolutely certain that 75+% of my early boss rush failures were to Gurgoth. So yeah, Gurgoth on Alucard is like uniquely difficult. And I don't know why they didn't give Alucard a slide kick. I actually can't figure out why. This is embarrassing, but I actually can't remember if he had one or not in Symphony of the Night. Yeah, okay, so actually I lied. That's the one part of the game where I do have to switch off Alucard. And I actually don't know if I necessarily had to do that. I think there might be another way up to this part of the map that you don't have to slide kick for, but nah, whatever. I can't remember if I don't think Alucard had a slide kick in Symphony of the Night, did he? I don't remember. But whether he did or didn't, I don't know. Would it have been so bad to just give it to him here? So Zephyr is a perfect... Zephyr and the Bat Company are both bosses that really reward like having a good feel for the whole Hellfire thing. That I was talking about before, where it's like you need to learn how to like backdash out of the Hellfire animation. Here, this is actually kind of painful to watch because I'm really not playing this well. I'm not confident with my Hellfire timings. So what I'm doing instead is I'm just kind of waiting for him to be... I'm waiting until he finishes an attack, and then like dipping in to swing at him a couple times and then backing up again, which is not really what I should be doing. I should be Hellfiring him from like as far across the screen as I can, and then like just backdashing out of the Hellfire to make sure I stay far away from him. Yeah, now I'm kind of playing it more the way that I should. Because, like I said in my Julius mode commentary, the key with Zephyr is you just have to respect him so much, because he could dash forward, he could dash towards you at any second, he could throw a knife at you at any second. You have to give him so much respect, and respect in this context means distance. You have to always keep in mind what's the worst thing he could possibly do here. That actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was. The beginning was bad, but I figured it out eventually. Yeah, Zephyr is a fight that I actually really like. It was frustrating. It was frustrating when I was going for no damage attempts, because Zephyr could sometimes just like randomly kill you. And actually, when I tabulated the results of the boss rush failed attempts, I remember Zephyr being like remarkably high. Like I fucked up and died on Zephyr a lot of times, although I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but it was very surprising to me. And I think that is just because he's so... There is an element of randomness to it, but also it's also just because the execution on him is super, super tight. Somehow I'm only at like... How much time is... This is so crazy. So right now, if I'm looking at the timeline for the video right now, I'm 38 minutes in. I'm only like halfway done. I feel like I'm at the end of the game, but there's still like 40 minutes left. I don't actually know how that's possible. Because I feel like I just went through the whole castle and fought like every boss. Interesting. Because what's left? Paranoia... Pinnacle, Agony, Mine, Grim Reaper, Abyss, Abaddon, Soma. I guess this right here is an example of why this is taking so long. If I really wanted to, I could just bat form fly over these bitches, but I guess I felt like fighting them. I also suspect that I'm probably going to take a little bit of time to get to Paranoia, because the thing about the Paranoia fight is that it's positioned in a place that, there's no save station right before the Paranoia fight. There's a save station like elsewhere in the Demon Guest House where Paranoia is, which is the zone the Paranoia is in, but it's not like near him. It's far, far away. And if you're playing on Julius mode where there's no healing items, then whatever damage you take on the way to Paranoia, you have to take with you into the Paranoia fight, which is more of a problem on Julius mode than it is on Soma mode. I mean, I guess Julius mode technically does have self-healing in the form of Yoko's mace, but I'm not playing with Yoko here. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I took, like, a tiny bit of damage while I was up. Oh, no, I leveled up. I didn't even, like, take any fucking damage. I just leveled up, and I wanted to get, like... I want to go into the Paranoia fight with, like, full health. So, I'm going to go all the way back down here to find a save station, then go back up and try to get to Paranoia without taking any damage. Which shouldn't be that hard, but where the fuck am I going? Oh! Oh, it's because I forgot to fight the Puppet Master. Oh, right. Okay, okay, so... I totally forgot about this. So usually... Yeah, usually I fight the Puppet Master... Like on Julius and Yoko, I fight the Puppet Master roughly when I'm supposed to in the overall route of the game. But here, I think I figured that because I was already over-leveled, like at the start of the game... I could wait until before the Paranoia fight to head up here and fight the Puppet Master. So that's what's going on. Okay. I completely fucking forgot about that. Yeah, the Puppet Master on Alucard is actually pretty rough because Yoko can just kind of burn him down. Julius has axes to deal with the dolls. Alucard has to sort of navigate around them more. It has fewer tools to deal with. Like Hellfire is basically useless here. If I really wanted to, I could climb up one of those ledges and try to Hellfire the boss a few times. I actually don't know why I wouldn't do that, but this little clip... Okay, yeah, there it is. Yeah, I should be doing that more often, because kind of the faster this fight is over, the better. And I suspect that's another reason why I waited until later in the run to go fight this guy, because he actually is pretty tricky, and it's because it takes so long for Alucard to kill the puppets, or the mannequins, I should say, and because he doesn't have, like, the axe or anything that lets him, like, effectively kill the floating dolls that might be, like, above him. So that's I think, what was going on there. And that also does confirm something that I tried to explain when I was talking in my Julius commentary, which is that I am now 90% sure that the mannequins in the Puppet Master fight are destroyed based off of the amount of times you hit them rather than how much damage you do to them. Because what I tried to say in my Julius commentary, but didn't for some reason, is that when I was playing on Julius, like 3 regular whip swings wouldn't kill them, but 2 whip swings with 2, like, whip flails would, even though numerically 3 whip swings should be more damage, or would meet the same damage threshold. So, and that right there pretty much just confirms that I'm absolutely certain that Julius's whips, like a whip swing plus a whip flail would do roughly 35 damage, or maybe like 41. And there, Alucard was hitting those fuckers 4 times for 39 damage each before they died, so I think that is based off of how many times you hit them, not how much damage you do. Which is a very weird mechanic to incorporate into the fight, because nothing else in the game is like that as far as I know. I mean, not that the Puppet Master is too hard as a boss, it's just very... It's just always preferable that whatever it is, however your boss functions, that should be conveyed more clearly. That's really not the kind of thing I feel like I should have to wonder about. Like, does this thing die when it runs out of health, or does it die when I meet some arbitrary cutoff point? And I have no idea where I'm going here. Am I going to a save station? Okay, I am, but I don't know why I'm doing that. Maybe I was nervous about going back through the succubus hallway? Oh no, now I'm going to fight Paranoia. Right, okay. I already fucking forgot. I don't know if I mentioned this or if I clarified this, but that is the way that Alucard, the way the Julius mode works is that you have to kill all the bosses before you get access to the mine, which then takes you to the Abyss. I didn't really get what the criteria was for entering the Mine of Judgment the first time I played this game, which made it pretty funny because I like cleared everything and then I got to the Mine of Judgment and it was still closed. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Like, why can't I get into the Mine of Judgment? And I realized that it's because I never fought the Flying Armor, which is the first boss in the game. First time I played Julius mode, I just took like a weird route that completely avoided the Flying Armor, and then I forgot it existed. So the Paranoia fight is really, really annoying because the fact that Alucard, it's better than Yoko and Julius with like the knowledge that I had at the time, because Alucard is bat form, which means that eventually I did find out a way to do the Paranoia fight, handle the mirrors without any kind of like without bat form, but at the time of this footage I was used to having bat form for the Paranoia fight. What I'm trying to do there is that you can kind of get him locked in like a cycle where he tries to attack, and then you push him back with a sword slash, and then he tries to attack again, and you can rack up some damage. And that is what I was doing there, but like inevitably he's gonna get to you eventually. Yeah, the fucking Paranoia fight on Alucard is so fucking annoying, because you have to do these weird mid-air, like slashes. You have to like turn and slash and turn and slash, and just in terms of the inputs required, that's pretty precise. And then of course the mirror phases are total horseshit. Because much like with the Bat Company, my knowledge of this fight was not great at the time that I collected this footage, and I didn't realize at the time. Even as I was doing the Alucard boss rush, I didn't ever really learn the mirror phases until I tried to no damages on Julius. But if I only ever take damage during the mirror phases, and I don't take that much, that was so lucky. I had no idea that's what was going to happen. I just kind of like happened to wander into a safe spot right there. If I can just avoid taking damage during the in-between, like I'm kind of resigned to taking damage during the mirror phases. But if I'm going to take, if I can avoid taking damage during the in-between phases, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be fine, and that's basically what happened there. I guess that's another reason why I would want levels, is because why I would go out of my way to kill things like all those succubi in the hallways, because I mean I do want to be, I'm not going to grind for levels, but being higher level is obviously preferable for this fight because I want the fewest number of mirror phases that I can possibly get. Every successful mirror phase at this point kind of feels like a luck-based thing. So the fewer times he gets to do the mirror phase, the fewer times I have to get lucky, the better. I mean, like I said, it's less luck-based than I thought it was at the time, but at the time that was my understanding of it, was that it was just like I have to get lucky. Would the succubi disguise themselves as Yoko for Alucard? I feel like, I guess they've learned their lesson about disguising as his mom, so that's off the table. Probably works. Alucard has never exactly shown like romantic interest in anybody, but I feel like he probably likes blonde women. That's just the impression I get from what little I know about him. Oh yeah, okay. I didn't know what I was doing for a second there, but yeah, that's the smart thing to do. Just try to pre-fire for those fuckers. Julius can use holy water, Yoko can use ice, Alucard has to use his one long-range tool to kill those things, and that long-range tool is Hellfire, unfortunately. Once I figured out that Hellfire was pretty generous with letting you backdash out of the animation while still firing, while still, like, executing the attack, I liked it a lot better. I think in this footage I'm kind of underutilizing it because I don't realize how flexible it is, but in the boss rush I eventually learned that I could... Oh, that's so slick. It just barely clips his foot. cool. I don't know why. I think I'm just fighting this thing to, like, to prove that I can. Or just, like, to practice fighting it. Because there are like, I think my instinct initially with those werewolves was to avoid fighting them because I wasn't sure, because I wasn't confident that I could fight them without taking damage. But eventually, I think I kind of realized that if I'm avoiding fighting something for that reason, then it would make more sense to just fight it. Speaking of skipping fighting things, there's no good way at all for Alucard to fight these Alistor guys. Other than what I'm doing here, which is plinking away at them 28 damage at a time. When I really should have just left as soon as I knocked him over to the left side of the screen. I should have just gotten out of that fucking room. But my instinct when I see an enemy is to try to kill it. I have a hard time. I have a hard time avoiding enemies instead of killing them. It's just a mindset that I have. I guess the Pinnacle has pretty dangerous enemies. I've talked before about how Dawn of Sorrow's enemies are, like, generic enemies are usually not threatening, but I guess the Pinnacle has a little bit. The Alistors are pretty scary if they actually hit you. The werewolves are pretty tough to fight. These fuckers, of course. Dude, I'm so fucking happy that they decided to make the DS games look good. And by that I mean, like, make them look like good 16-bit games. Like really good-looking 16-bit games like Rondo. Symphony of the Night's not 16-bit, but, like, you know, it could be. it looks kind of like... It looks like Rondo. Because the Dracula X Chronicles has that, like, DS... PSP era, like, 3D graphics to it. I call it the Shadow Dragon look. I call it that because of a Fire Emblem game called Shadow Dragon that looks like that. And it just looks like garbage. Like, I think that with Dracula X Chronicles, I think the intention was we can't make the game look like Rondo because we're remaking Rondo. So if we make a remake of Rondo that looks like Rondo, it's going to look too much like Rondo. But So let's make it look different. Let's take full advantage of the graphical capabilities of the PSP, but unfortunately in this context, taking full advantage of the graphical capabilities of the PSP meant taking one of the best looking Castlevania games in the series, Rondo, and making it look like shit. Even if they only did it so they could reuse sprites from Symphony of the Night, I'm very, very glad that when the time came to make the DS games, they chose to make them look like something good and not like trash. The fact that Alucard can't slide kick also has implications for the Agony fight, as I've already demonstrated twice, where we are supposed to do, if he uses his claw attack and backs you up into a corner, is slide kick out from under him, so that way, you can get, like, a buffer of... you can get, like... Because in order to avoid his claw attack, you need there to be a certain amount of empty distance behind you. And, if you're up against the wall, obviously you don't have that, so if he claw attacks and he pushes you up against the wall... After the attack is over, he could do it again, so you need to really quickly slide kick out from underneath him in order to get distance behind you again. But Alucard can't slide kick, so if Agony claw attacks me into a corner, then I just kind of have to hope he doesn't do that again. And that's also why I'm moving really, really minimally here, because I want to maximize... I want to prepare for as many possible claw attacks in a row as possible. And the less distance I cover per claw attack, the more distance I'll have to respond to subsequent claw attacks, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's why I'm, like, stutter stepping there. Because as far as I can tell, there doesn't seem to be any pattern to Agony's attacks. He kind of just does whatever he wants whenever he wants to do it. I don't think the game checks to see if you're up against a wall or not, and then decides whether or not to claw attack. I know that some boss AI is like that, where, like, if you're cornered, then there's certain attacks that they won't do, and they try to, like, give you a chance to to respond to it, or give you a chance to get out by doing something else. But I'm pretty sure Aguni can theoretically just claw attack over and over again if he wants. That's another example of pattern fishing, like I talked about. And that's just, I mean, that's just a consequence of making the bosses, like, random. Yes, it's less predictable, and it makes it harder, but it also means that whether or not you defeat the boss can come down to, like, luck instead of correct execution. And that's, I mean, that's why consistency is important, man. Well, like, when I learned the boss rush, it wasn't just about killing the bosses, it was about killing the bosses consistently, so I needed to be prepared for every scenario. That's what I find enjoying about those challenges. Even though, like, no damaging the boss rush on Julius and Alucard almost ruined my life, I'm glad I did it, because it meant that I could say with absolute certainty that I had learned as much about Dawn of Sorrow as I was willing to. I mean, there's still a lot of shit about this game I don't know. I've never 100%ed the map. Obviously, like, there are souls that I've just never used. Like, 95% of the souls in the game I've just never used. But that's okay. I would say that, in terms of fun, the fact that Alucard, like, because I'm thinking about, like, Julius mode and, like, which of the three characters is the best, is, like, my favorite or, like, the most fun. In Symphony of the Night, one of the best things about the game is how fluid and fast and responsive it is to control Alucard. You know, especially coming to Symphony of the Night from a game from, you know, well, the game that I came to it from was Simon's Quest. But especially coming to Symphony of the Night from classic Castlevanias, where, like, so much of it is, like, fixed jumping arcs, wind-up weapon attacks. Like, the fact that Alucard moves so fast and fluidly is, like, it, like, jumps out at you immediately, and it feels really good, and it feels really refreshing. But, you know, at this point in the series, that's not really special anymore. So the fact that Alucard is quick and responsive still feels nice, but it doesn't feel as nice. And that means that he's not... I don't think I would say Alucard's the most fun to play in Julius mode. I'd say it's probably Julius. I think that mostly just boils down to options. Where, like, Alucard has two long-range options. He has the fireballs and then the teleport slash. But, Julius just has more options in general. Yoko's a little clunky and a little bit limited. Maybe clunky's not the right word. I'd say limited. Yoko feels limited. Alucard feels kind of limited. Julius feels unlimited. Julius feels like he can do anything. So that's the last of the bosses before I go to the Mine of Judgment. The mine, I kind of went back and forth with, like, how to treat the mine. I think I'm probably just going to go through it as fast as possible. Another issue with the mine is that I never really felt like I was 100% confident navigating it, because it's very hard to remember where things are just by looking at them. This is one... I complained in my 2-hour commentary about the Nintendo DS conceptually. But I think that what they did in these DS Castlevania games, which is they had the second screen just be like a permanent map screen, I think that's really, really helpful. And it actually kind of makes me wish that I was playing these games in a way that would allow me to take advantage of that, because when I upload my Portrait of Ruin footage, I have a terrible feeling that I'm going to be swapping to the map screen constantly, and it's going to be, like, really visually jarring. Which sucks, but that's just kind of the bed that I made for myself when I decided to record these games the way that I did and play them the way that I did. But like I was starting to say, credit where credit is due. Having the map screen constantly available on the second screen is really nice, because that avoids exactly what I just talked about, which is constantly swapping to the map screen. Or it's at least it's not like the fucking Saturn version of Symphony of the Night where the map screen has its own fucking loading screen. Maybe I'll go back and play Symphony of the Night again and like try to play some kind of like... Because something that I talked about when I talked about Harmony of Dissonance was that I compared it unfavorably to Symphony of the Night in terms of the difficulty and like how demanding the gameplay is, but then I realized kind of as I was saying it at the time that the way that I've played Aria of Sorrow and Harmony of Dissonance, and Dawn of Sorrow too to a certain extent, are just fundamentally different from how I played Symphony of the Night, where for Aria of Sorrow and Harmony of Dissonance I gave myself like arbitrary goals or challenges where it's like play on hard mode and don't use items. In Symphony of the Night, I never really tried to deliberately augment my gameplay experience to increase the challenge. And I think if I might have, that might make a difference in terms of... Because like hard mode is hard mode, like hard mode in the Harmony of Dissonance exists no matter what, but the no item stipulation was like an invention on my part. And so I do feel like my evaluation of the game's difficulty was partially based off of an arbitrary thing that I did, and I didn't do anything comparable for Symphony of the Night. So maybe going through Symphony of the Night with, like, I don't know, like no armor or, like, permanent Ring of Ares, that might be fun. Because something that I've talked about before in other videos is that, like, it's very rare that I'll upload a piece of footage and I'm like 100% happy with it. Like nothing went wrong in this footage. This all showcases exactly what I want. That kind of never happens. And something that's always bothered me about my Symphony of the Night footage is that I kind of feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants in a lot of the boss fights. I feel like I never really learned them properly. Okay, so the Grim Reaper fight on Alucard, this is another slide kick issue, where when he does this fucking shit, when he backs you up into a corner and just keeps swinging his axe at you, the game expects you to slide kick under him during that first overhand swing. Alucard can't fucking do that, so if the Grim Reaper... So the other out that Alucard has is to teleport slash, but the issue, as you may have noticed, is that I don't have infinite MP. Like, what he just did there forced me to burn through like half my MP. And so if he just keeps doing this, exactly what's happening right now, I'm going to get to Phase 2 with no MP, and there are attacks that the Grim Reaper has in Phase 2 that I also want to dodge with the Teleport Slash. So my hope is to use as little MP as possible during Phase 1, but he's not really giving me that option. This is another like pattern thing, another luck-based thing, where if the Grim Reaper gives me like just terrible patterns over and over again, then he can just burn through all my MP and I'll be fucked. But I have to hope he doesn't do that. Oh, interesting. So I'm not... Okay. See, that's the attack that I eventually started teleport slashing in order to avoid. Because what's interesting... Because the scythes, the small scythes that he summons kind of aim at you, but the big scythe does too. So if you teleport slash on the right timing, then he'll think you are over where the teleport vision of you is, and he'll actually throw the scythe opposite the direction that you are. The teleport slash would be good even if he didn't do that, because it would help misdirect some of the smaller scythes. But the fact that it does that means that you can actually avoid the big scythe altogether, which makes it much, much easier to deal with the smaller scythes. I'm kind of losing my voice, sorry. I mean, I'm handling it pretty well here, but, like... I've been getting pretty good scythe patterns. If a scythe spawns in the wrong spot, like a small scythe spawns in the wrong spot during this attack, that is exactly what can happen right there. Because I jumped to kill a scythe that was directly above me, but when he's okay, yeah, the reason, oh my god, this is so bad. Okay, thank god. So what went wrong there is that when he's lower to the ground and he starts doing his like that throw scythe attack, all of a sudden you can't jump anymore, because if you jump you're going to knock your head into the scythe. And when you can't, because optimally what you would do during that attack is you would clear out the small scythes so you can focus on dodging the big scythe, but part of clearing out the small scythes is like you might have to jump to deal with them, right? Because you need to get to them fast. They're probably going to be above you. They're going to be kind of out of the way. But when he's lower to the ground like that, all of a sudden he takes away your ability to jump, and that's when you're kind of fucked. And that would have been a situation where if I teleport slashed to bait the scythe throw over to the right instead of the left, that would have given me time to jump and kill scythes, and then also get out of the way of the big scythe when it went along the floor. So that's why teleport slashing is useful. The Abyss is actually the one place where regular enemies, the configuration of regular enemies can be threatening and can actually kill you. Which is, I mean, that's how it should be. If any place in the game should be, like, super dangerous, it should be the last level. Oh shit, okay, yeah, that's not what I wanted there. Yeah, I was trying to be clever by, like... Yeah, that backfired. This makes much more sense to do. Excuse me. This is my last Dawn of Sorrow commentary. Do I have any closing thoughts on the Abyss? I think I already said that the ear is weird. And this part of the map, this part of the level sucks. There's nothing fun about your movement getting restricted. That right there is a perfect example of what I'm talking about when I talk about Alucard's limitations. Where that heart enemy was like right there. Right? It was like right next to me, but it was above me, so I couldn't like do anything about it. Julius can just swap to the axe when shit like that happens. And I think that was intentional. I think that was their way of discouraging exactly what I'm doing, which is playing through Julius mode with just one character. Because on the one hand, you know, if they make a character who's as terrible at combat as Dracula's Curse Alucard is, then that character will just never get played. But you can't make every... I think they wanted to encourage you to swap between characters for different situations, and the way they did that was by making Alucard's field of influence very limited. I actually could kill that thing if I wanted. The reason why I skipped it is because it's just risky. It's just risky. I've already taken damage. If I can avoid an enemy instead of fighting it at this point in the game, there's kind of no reason not to do that, because I'm expecting to get to the Soma fight roughly at level 35, and I'm at 33 now. That's like close enough. I'm not concerned with getting any more levels or trying to gain any more XP. That's never really a major concern anyway, but that would be the only reason to fight an enemy that I could otherwise easily avoid, would be for the XP, and that's not a consideration anymore. Come on, man. There he is. I don't know why I was so scared. That's why I was so scared of that guy. Because I was worried about getting, like, wombo comboed into a fucking Malachi ball. keep in mind, this is all one run, right? So if I die right now, that's an hour, that's an hour and 10 minutes down the drain. Which is why this fucking Abaddon fight coming up is so stressful. I talked about Abaddon in my other videos. I actually think Alucard has the easiest Abaddon fight of all three of the Julius mode characters, because Julius has answers to all of Abaddon's attacks. Yoko doesn't, which is why it's the hardest on her. Julius and Alucard both have answers to all of Abaddon's attacks. The crucial difference, though, is that Alucard's answers to Abaddon's attacks are always the same. The answer is teleport slash. Julius, you have to actually pay attention to what's going on and react differently according to the situation. With Alucard, he can just teleport slash out of the way of like most attacks. Like the overhand one, teleport slash, the straight line, teleport slash. The sideways U, I think he has to bat form. The vertical U, he can just super jump. I guess Julius does have a slightly easier time dealing with the sideways U, because he can just throw cross and then whip flail. But for everything else, Alucard just has to push one button and he doesn't get hit by it. Because even though Julius has the answers, and even though most of the answers are some form of like whip flailing or using the cross, like you have to position yourself, you have to press multiple buttons, you have to hold down a button, you have to like... Alucard just presses fucking A and he's like fine. I think it's A. I don't remember what button it is actually on a DS. I think I already said this, but this is my favorite part of the Abyss, like visually, this segment here. Yeah, Alucard's sword is a little bit longer than it looks. And that's a funny little quirk, because I feel like that floating demon enemy was probably supposed to fly out of my melee range if he was in my melee range. But there he just kind of sat there and died, which feels unintentional. These angels there are actually a really big problem to fight on Julius, because Julius, because they take reduced holy damage, and most of Julius's attacks are holy damage. Like the whip, I think, does holy damage, the cross does holy damage. The axe, I imagine, doesn't, but if they're not in a good position to get axed, then you're fucked. That's what that little alcove is there for, by the way. I always kind of wondered why that was there. It's in case the snail gets up to that corner and just fucking sits there. Gives you a perfectly safe option to deal with it. I actually don't know if there's a Julius hard mode. Because there is a hard mode in Dawn of Sorrow, but the reason I didn't do it for the main game is because it's only unlocked if you play New Game Plus, and I wasn't really interested in engaging with the whole New Game Plus mechanic. For Julius mode, I don't think there's a hard mode. I don't know how like New Game Plus interacts with the Julius mode. I'm guessing it just doesn't. I thought about that because I was looking at the spikes, and I remembered that in hard mode spikes do more damage. I also think it's funny that Alucard inexplicably swaps into his Symphony of the Night outfit just so they can use the Symphony of the Night sprite. Hey, I'm not complaining, you know what like these guys are working hard. Whatever makes sense. No reason to make another Alucard sprite when there's a perfectly good Alucard sprite that already exists, that looks great, that's fucking iconic. No reason to make unnecessary work for yourself. So the Soma fight on Alucard is, I don't know, because like Alucard is Hellfire, which is good, but I'm not sure if it's... The issue is really just damage. Like, how quickly can Alucard do damage to Soma? And I don't remember what the actual numbers are, but I'm pretty sure Hellfire does a good chunk of damage. That's what, 51 twice? That's 102 damage. I don't know how much damage Julius and Yoko did from far away during during this like first teleport phase, but it's probably comparable. It's phase 2 when things get tricky, because then he can only use his. You can really only use your sword on phase 2 of the Soma fight. Because as flexible as Hellfire is, you don't want to backdash out of the animation during this fight, because you want to maintain a very specific position at all times during phase 2 of the Soma fight. You want to be in front of his knee literally at all times. So backdashing at any point is a bad idea. See, that's what I mean. I hesitated for like a split second there. I was mid-air instead of on the floor, and I got clipped. And if you haven't watched the other footage, you might think this is another backdash problem. But actually, you can just running right underneath the Dracula is, I think, the intended solution. Because if you even just take the time to crouch and slide, then that first centipede that the harpy, that downward centipede that the harpy fires will actually clip you. So I think the game just means for you to run right underneath him immediately, instead of waiting to crouch or slide or do anything differently. So that's actually not an issue. And here I am working in a Hellfire. This is good. Because phase 2 of Soma has so much fucking health, it's actually insane. That was what really surprised me. This fight felt really fucking long every single time. Every single time I did it. Because he just has so much fucking health. That's what I mean when I say very specific position. You have to be in front of him, but you can't be so close to him that when he turns around, he like knocks into you with his body. That's kind of the trick. I mean, anything is going to feel really long when you're like 2 hits away from dying the whole time. And when there's, what, an hour and 15 minutes on the line. I feel like I keep bumping my microphone. Sorry, guys. Overall, though, I wouldn't say that the Dracula fight is particularly easy, or particularly hard on any given character. It's roughly equal on all of them, since the only movement that it asks of you is just to run underneath Dracula, which isn't too much to ask. There we go. Beautiful. Down goes Dracula. Or I guess it's Dracula. Down goes everything else. That's Julius mode. That's Dawn of Sorrow. I think I've already given my thoughts on Dawn of Sorrow, speaking generally, exhaustively at this point. Anything more that I say would just be repeating myself. Something that I don't know if I've emphasized enough, though, in my... I know I've said this, but I don't know if I've really made the point very clearly. This game is very bittersweet for me. I think something that I said once was that this game makes me sad. And fitting, I suppose, called Dawn of Sorrow. Circle of the Moon was like an experiment, right? So when Circle of the Moon when Circle of the Moon like sucks, or when Circle of the Moon does things that are dumb, it doesn't make me feel sad. It makes me feel like, well, this game had to be like this, because this is the first Symphony of the Night style game to come out since Symphony of the Night. They were experimenting. These are just things that you have to try. With Dawn of Sorrow, so like whether an experiment succeeds or fails, it's still giving you useful information. It doesn't feel like a waste. Dawn of Sorrow feels like a waste. It feels like a waste of exceptional visual design and music and talent. And it's all because of these systems that they were enamored with that ended up really costing them big time. And I'm only talking about the main game at this point. Julius mode, I think, is totally fine. Julius mode is really fun. The 3 characters, yes, they're all good at combat, but like I kind of briefly talked about, they all do have different capabilities and different skills that makes them feel distinct. And if you were to play Julius mode conventionally, where you have all 3 of them, I think it does a good job of encouraging you to try different characters for different situations. So, Dawn of Sorrow overall, not a big fan. Julius mode, excellent. And I think I'm going to have to take another break for a little bit, because I'm kind of falling behind. I've been super busy lately, but keep your eyes peeled. I'm going to have stuff coming in the future. Keep on Earth rocking.